Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another session of Coaching Conversations with Richard and Elle. My name is Richard Grossi. I am a performance and addiction recovery and life coach in South Africa. I'm here with my friend Elle in the UK. Elle, do you want to say how's?
Hey, Rich. Good to see you. Yeah. I'm Ali Gordon. I'm a performance and leadership coach based up in North London. Good to see you, Rich.
Thanks, man. So this week, guys, Al's got a really interesting topic for us. I think it is surrounded around our inner voice. So Al, I'm going to hand over to you to introduce, and then let's kick it.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rich. So yes, you and I are having a conversation a while ago, actually, about the inner voice. So I thought it'd be a really great thing to talk about today. And my thoughts around the inner voice is that we all have one. And if you're staring at the screen and going, I haven't got one, that's your inner voice. And it can work in different ways: fear, reason, intuition. And it can be a very positive voice in your head, and it can be a very negative thought in your head as well. But we've got all these messages going around in our heads constantly. If you've ever meditated, the first time, second time, third time, fourth time you meditate, you just close your eyes and try and calm your brain. It's like a sort of, I don't know what you've got over in South Africa, but we have these sort of 6-lane, 8-lane motorways. It literally is like watching a motorway race past with lots of millions of thoughts. A lot of them aren't actually going anywhere. They're just stuff that's come up and got in the way of what we're trying to do. Suddenly something will come up. Oh, you need to do this. You need to do that. It can come up in relationships. Oh, she doesn't want to see you. He doesn't want to hear from you. It can come up in your career. Well, you're not good enough for that. That's not something that you could ever do. It can come up in all forms, shapes and forms in all parts of our life. So I really wanted to talk around that today, Rich. And I know you had quite a lot that you wanted to say about it as well. So over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I know it's a fascinating topic, and it's one I get asked about often, a lot from my coaching clients, because a lot of people will say, I hear this inner voice, but it's not just one, there's a few. Which one do I listen to? And I'm like, shit, I hear you. I feel the same way. But it's interesting enough, our intuition, our gut feelings, etc., are inexplicably tied to our sense of self. Mm-hmm. So when we are listening to our inner voice, it means we are really listening, trusting ourselves, facing ourselves. And, it's interesting because our inner voice can be tied to so many things. So it can go fantastic where there is a gut feeling, and how gut feelings are explained in terms of my understanding of it. There was an incredible experiment. Well, it was an experiment. There was this guy, I can't remember his name offhand, but he had got a wound in his stomach. I think it was actually a bullet had gone into his stomach and perforated it, and you could see his stomach lining. And he was in hospital for a very long period of time because the wound wouldn't heal. And when he was in a great mood, the gut lining of the stomach would be clear. When he was angry or upset or screaming and shouting at the nurses, etc., the gut lining suddenly became inflamed. So the guts and the brain, which are actually connected by the same vein, are very, very much tied together. So, for example, when we experience something that makes us happy, etc., we can feel that happiness inside of us. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so we can't really dissect the two from together, which kind of brings me to the thought of these inner voices that we are hearing. They must be tied to a story in my understanding somehow. What are we assessing? What moods are we in when we're hearing these gut voices? So that's kind of where my head was at with this. But I mean, I've got quite a bit to add in here, including some of my own personal experience with it. But I want to throw it back to you, Elle, and see what you think about that.
So, yeah, I mean, great story, by the way. I'd not heard that story. Look, I think from my point of view, a lot of the inner voice comes from our upbringing, comes from our parents, it comes from our caregivers, comes from our mentors, the stories that they've told us. And those stories have built up and built up and built up. And they're essentially is the subconscious or inner voice is there to protect us. They think that if something's dangerous, they're going to try and protect us. So I think when certain negative things come up, for instance, in terms of choosing the right career or the right relationship or around money, the inner voice is what you will often hear. But I think you're right. It's sometimes the gut that we're not all great at listening to. I think we're all guilty of that. Like let's just carry on. Let's listen to everyone else. And actually your gut is what's really telling you the truth. And often it's the gut that you've got to get in tune with. So yeah, I agree with you on that as well. But it can be such the negative effect, of course, it can give you such a fearful and stop you moving forward. You can't do this. You're not good enough to do that. She doesn't love you. He doesn't love you. And it can really stop you moving forward. So I think it's really much a case of being able to sit in this inner voice and starting to hear it. First of all, stop denying you've got one and actually listen to it and sit with it and start to understand the messages. If my view on it, if you create a character out of it and got it to sit next to you or to spend some time with you, and you treated it like much more like that, then some of the things that you'd be listening to would not be healthy. They just wouldn't be healthy. And you'd be wondering why you've allowed this character into your life. So yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts around that, Rich.
Yeah, no, I love where you're going here because that inner voice or that can go bad, and we were talking about that early on, that critical voice is not a trustworthy voice to listen to. It's typically a voice that stemmed from our childhood or some traumatic experience that we learned from an authoritative figure that we trusted, et cetera, et cetera. And how we can separate that from our conscience is when that voice becomes degrading and punishing. We must recognize right then and there, it's actually not our conscience coming forward. So when people say there's two voices, it's important to kind of distinguish the one from the other. Which one is trying to protect you and which one is trying to maybe not protect you, but potentially smother you. So that critical voice can jump forward often. And I do see a lot of clients who come to me to discuss this critical voice and how it has held them back. And it's important to understand that as we progress through life, those figures that potentially we got this critical voice from or stemmed from are no longer relevant in our lives to a degree that they need to exert control to help us. And so, I've got many examples from growing up where we were told you can't do this, don't do that, X, Y, and Z. Just came from various people and places that are kind of respected and understood at that age. And I've had to challenge them continuously, especially in the latter years of my life where I've become a coach, etc. It's been a phenomenal exercise for me to absolutely identify those voices and have a conversation with them and say, I appreciate, and it doesn't go like, no, get away, stop, I've actually had a conversation and said, I appreciate what you're trying to give me. However, it's no longer required. I do not need your assistance. So potentially those voices were there at a stage to protect us, and they were potentially serving us at that stage. But when they start taking from us, they're no longer in service to us, we are in service to them. So it's very important for us to take a step out, look back and be like, let me be the observer of this voice instead of allowing the voice to become me, because we are not that voice. It doesn't belong to us. We weren't born with it. We learned it. And so it's quite a helpful exercise. And I'll tell you what, another phenomenal tool that I learned, and sorry, I'm going to just deviate here onto a somatic exercise, if that's okay. Is that cool?
Go for it.
Okay, cool. So very early on when I started studying coaching, I had this critical voice that I could not get away from. And I was speaking to my mentors about it, and I battled through it for a while because I did exactly what you suggested. And I wanted to sit with the voice and I wanted to be the observer. And sometimes, we need a little bit more because that is exactly the right thing to do. So what I was advised to do, and I'm going to stand up for this so I can demonstrate. My one instructor said to me, okay, Richard, where does this voice sit? Because our body is forever a learning mechanism. We're forever learning. And that voice sat here for me. And he said to me, okay, cool. What would happen if first of all, what does that shape of that voice look like? And for me, it looked circular. He said, if you remove that, physically try and take it out and hold it in front of you and say to the voice, what are you trying to tell me? and be open to learning from it, be receptive to the conversation. And I learned that voice was saying, I am trying to protect you. I'm trying to keep you from harm. I'm trying to, and this was in accordance to a relationship, I want to make sure that you're not hurt again. And I actually started to understand the nature of that voice. Instead of fighting it, I became in union with it. And when I had a conversation, I know it sounds very esoterical and all that shit, but it wasn't, because I'm not that guy. I'm not the esoterical guy. Like, don't give me bullshit. Tell me the facts. And once I learned what the voice was trying to say, I could make peace with it, and I was able to put it back into me because it's a part of who I am. And once I did that, I found that critical voice started to diminish to some acceptable level where it wasn't harming me anywhere. I wasn't in service to it. It was now back in service to me.
I think that's a fantastic example, Rich. I think it's. I just wanted to pick up on one point, was that the inner voice is there to protect you, and the thing is, the inner voice is only using information that's garnered over years and years and years and years, which doesn't necessarily make it true. Of course, we were talking earlier before we got on the camera about, setting up our own businesses and running businesses, and I think when you, for instance, a great example of starting a business, there will be lots of naysayers on one side going, you don't want to do that. Oh no, you want to stay employment. There'll be other people going, yeah, great, go for it. You've got a great talent. And then there'll be this inner voice, which will be sort of trying to keep you safe. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. And really keeping you fearful, because as you know, when you first start your business, you have to be a salesperson, a marketeer. If you're a coach, you have to actually coach. You actually have to do the job as well as everything else. And that inner voice will be trying to keep you safe. And actually all it's doing is stopping you from growing and stopping you from moving forward. So I think it's a fantastic example of being able to, as you say, stand back, step back, and listen to it and try to understand what it's trying to say. And then you get to make the choice. Is that truth? Is that really true? Or is that just something that's trying to keep me safe? And finding the middle path, I think, is the way to, for me personally. I know when I did a lot of my own work with my own coach quite some time ago, understanding this inner voice and how it was holding me back and trying to stop me making decisions that were really actually quite healthy decisions was a fantastic gift, really, that I got. And now I listen to it all the time, and I listen to it, but I don't always believe it, and I don't always trust it, but at least I try and listen to it. But I think your example is such a great example, actually. It really is, of taking it out and actually looking and going, what are you trying to say to me? We can't do that all the time, of course, but stuff that's niggling, we've got to have a look at it. You're absolutely right. Ignoring it does you absolutely no good whatsoever.
No, 100%. 100%. And I think what a very important lesson that I've learned when it comes to my inner voice is deciphering what emotion it is attached to.
Yes.
Because otherwise we can get lost in these interpretations that are this wide and that narrow. And I mean, I've had many experiences with it lately. In fact, I had quite a profound experience, which I'd like to get back to just now. But one more thing that I want to talk about the body and where these voices typically sit or can sit. So what I've learned in my own body, and again, this will probably be different for other people, but when we learn to read body language, this is also like our intuition stepping forward, and a person's gut feelings coming through, or it's being expressed in the body. So for me, anxiety is riddled over here and in my arms. Okay. As soon as my arms heat up, I know anxiety is on its way and it's over here. For me, also, when I get emotionally hurt, it sits here. When I'm extremely sad, it sits here. So it's right below the belly button. Pain from like heartache is right here. And then anxiety is over here. So it's also great for us in terms of body learning. Where is our body sitting? What is our mind telling us? And how do we become, more in tune with ourselves and learning from our body? Because our body is a phenomenal source to learn from. I believe that mind, emotions, and body cannot be separated. They're all, for example, for me, they're all in one. And that's why I say it's so important to regard the stories that we are telling ourselves, because it will have a direct effect on our emotions, and our body structure would automatically take whatever position it would be, whether you're fearful, whatever. And our gut is tied to our brains it's proven, you know what I'm saying? So it's also another one. And another thing I wanted to just jump onto is that I had a really interesting experience about a week and a half ago. Quite a personal experience, but I'm happy to share it. I wrote it down in order to process it. So I just want to read it because for a very long time, I would say for about a period of 1 to 2, 3 years, I've been sitting with a feeling in the pits of my stomach, right at the bottom. And I couldn't quite distinguish what the feeling was. And so I had a conversation with somebody I really respect, and I was describing this to her. And she said to me, write it down. And then I wrote this thing, and I said, and I realized that the space inside of me, the one that contained tenets of broken memories from my past, wasn't a deep, dark, and never-ending void of shame. It was vulnerability, my most sacred and guarded gift, which only a few had seen. I had so tightly concealed it from you that it had taken me years to realize that she still lived within. Why had it taken me all this time to recognize that the voice that whispered to me was her? There were so many conversations that could have been had with vulnerability, so many moments I could have allowed her to comfort me. Instead, I tried to ignore it and hide. Instead, I thought that if I held my breath, that maybe in time I could starve her. It never left for long. And then I realized that it formed the foundation of my life. And as far as I refused to acknowledge her, she would be the ruin of me. And it's just what you said earlier on. In order to recognize and understand and get to grips, we cannot ignore these things. And from the moment I was able to distinguish and tie what exactly is this feeling? Well, it's vulnerability. And I had a conversation with vulnerability. I realized that this feeling that I had been like, oh my God, what's going on? And I tried to ignore and run away from, was there to say to me, Richard, I'm here for you. I'm in service to you. And so it was the story that I attached to it. And since I've recognized it, named it, been able to see compassion it has for me, that feeling is completely left. And again, I know this sounds esoterical and very Harry Potterish and all that shit, but it really isn't. This is my own experience. And I thought I'd just really like to share that because it's a great way to start distinguishing and naming these emotions that come up through us, through the inner voices or the feelings that we are feeling inside ourselves.
First of all, thanks for the share, Rich. That was a very personal share. So thank you for that. I've got a question for you then, based on that. How would you help people to manage it? What great tips could you give people to help manage your inner voice?
I would say, what's worked for me is do not ignore it. Number two, if that inner voice is actually bringing up a feeling in your body somewhere, try and find where it's located. So what really helped me out to distinguish it is when I stood up and I was like, okay, where are you talking to? And I was able to put my fingers or my hand right here at the bottom. I realized this isn't anxiety, number one. This isn't a broken heart or something sore. And I was like, okay, well then what is it? Because I'd always thought to myself, oh, this is because of X, Y, and Z. Somehow I knew it wasn't true, but I needed a label for it. So try and find the source in your body where it is, in your gut. And also sometimes what can help is to name it. Become friends with it and acknowledge it. And if you need to remove it from you and hold it in your hand and have a conversation with it, do so, because that helped me hugely. And I know it's insane. I mean, I try to do this with actually a member of my family, and they're like, are you using drugs again? I'm like, no, this works, I promise you. And just, really get to grips with what it is and realize that it's not there. This feeling or this inner voice is not there to harm you. As you said, it is there to protect you. But we've got to also realize that it's our interpretation and the way we regard it, whether it works for us or against us.
Agreed. I love all those points. I really, really do. I think probably the only one I'd add in there is meditation is such a great way of, I think when you first start meditating, you don't realize once you sort of close your eyes and just try to focus on one thing, which is normally, either a breath or a mantra, how much is really going on in your head. And I think the beautiful thing about meditation, you never really nail meditation because there's always something going on, but it's such a great way of at least taking 10 minutes, 20 minutes out of your day, just to slow everything down and let some key things come through, or not, just to kind of let the brain slow down, because the brain is working, literally 24 hours. It's obviously once you go to sleep, then it's the dreams that you're having and all those things as well. They're trying to sort of it's trying to push messages through. And just to say again that it's not always the truth, it's just our truth, and it may not be something that's going to help you, but at least listen to it. But it may also be trying to really help you with the gut, like, what you really need to do is this, and you've quashed it down because maybe that decision is not the decision you want to make. For instance, if you want to break up with somebody and for months, maybe years, you've been sort of thinking, oh gosh, I just keep pushing that away, keep pushing that, but your voice keeps coming in like, this isn't working, this isn't making you happy, this isn't nourishing you. You could be doing other things, and it's listening to that. And I think meditation is a very good way of softening the blow a little bit of that. So
no, I love that. I love that. It's important. If you also think about just like those sayings that have been around for years, never have a conversation with somebody when you're angry. Never make a decision when you're hungry. You know what I'm saying? Like a big decision or whatever it might be. They always say, well, sleep on it and think about it in the morning. Those types of sayings is because when we are like in a different mood or mindset, when you are anxious, when you are angry, it's not a right time to make decisions. Be conscious of what that voice is telling you tied to the mood that you're in. So if you're walking into work and you're highly anxious, it's probably not the best time to make a big decision over there. And that's why I love what you said about meditation, because meditation is one way that it signals to our nervous system it's time to relax. And so when you are relaxed, you are able to make better ordered decisions. So I think meditation should be, like I always say to my clients, I know meditation can be like a mission to do. And people actually think, meditation, oh my gosh, I don't have time for it. And I'm like, there are so many guided meditations on YouTube that are 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, and anybody can do it, and the benefits are so vast because it tells our nervous system to calm down. And so the inner voice will be tied to all of this stuff, how the nervous system is in the moment. And as you say, initially when I started meditation, honestly, I think I've got high functioning ADHD because I can do 5 things at the same time and whatever. But as I started to practice it with the 5-minute meditation, I found, hey, I could do 15 in a week, and then I started to look forward to it. And it's like going to the gym. We are so willing to actually work and manipulate the physical muscles in our body because of the potential benefits it's going to give us in the short run. But the one muscle that we ignore the most, the brain, we are so willing to say, I don't have time to work you. And actually, not only are we strengthening it, we are benefiting our nervous system and the way that we perceive and interpret our lives. And if we just build this in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a night before we go to sleep, before you start your day, come on, if we can go outside and, go to the pub or drive to see our friends, there's time for all of this stuff. The benefits are just like insane.
I agree. And of course, the irony is that it's the inner voice that's stopping you meditating.
True story. No true words spoken. Listen to that. That's brilliant.
Great. I really enjoyed that conversation, Rich, because I think it's something that if people can really get in touch with and really find a way to manage and listen to, it can be incredibly powerful and really can exponentially move your life forward. But you've really got to take the time to get in touch with it. And it may be a bit nerve-wracking initially, but take the time, because I think you and I both agree that it's been a huge part of who we are now and what we will continue to want to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Al, thanks for the conversation. I think it was a really good one, an interesting topic. And I think you and I could talk on this for hours. I think it's important for whomever is watching to maybe just take some time out, you know, if it's 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, and just listen to your body. Stop. Listen to your body. Listen to where your emotions are, what your body is learning, what's going through your mind. Is it the critical voice? Can we quieten it by bringing in truth? You know, and if it's a voice that is just, there's thousands of them and you can't distinguish, it's okay. Where do you feel it in your body? Is it here? Is it anxiety? Is it potentially, and you know, different somatic structures? And let's make ourselves available to learning from one of the most important parts that are available to us is our body. So I think a wonderful conversation and a wonderful exercise for our listeners. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, always so awesome to spend time with you. Al and I have so many different coaching conversations recorded on our YouTube channel. So if you have missed any, please do yourselves a favor and go and check them out. As always, thank you so much for your comments and feedback, and excited to see you next week. Until then, guys, have an awesome week and we'll catch you later.
Great. Good to see you, Rich. Take care and see you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.